Good morning to everybody in TV land. This is Mike Hittner in Historic Point Basse update. To my right, Larry Knudsen. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you. Good morning.
And to my left, Jim Nickel. Welcome, Jim.
Oh, thank you.
We got a couple citizens with us here today to help out on the program. We've got lots of areas to cover, and what we usually like to do is an update on different events that have happened at the site. And our first event that happened was on September 15th. We had our our Harvest Fair. And our Harvest Fair was, a great event. One group I got to talk to, I think, Jim, I've got a frog this morning or a toad or something. But one of the groups I think had 16 people in the whole group or something. Wasn't like
Came through like a family.
yeah,
Family
like
thing,
extended family.
Right.
And as usual, we had a great group of people early, and then about 2 o'clock it starts to taper down for us a little bit. Larry, you were in the bunkhouse. Why don't you tell us what you interpreted?
Bunkhouse, I've got all my items in there that I portray myself again as a Norwegian immigrant that came here to work in the logging camps, but I hunt during the summer because you do not do logging in the summer like you do in the winter. So I hunt passenger pigeons and waterfowl, and I do like talking about hunting the passenger pigeons because it's something we don't talk about a lot. And it was a very big means of hunting and
They
making
say
money
when they
back
used
then.
to migrate, they covered the sun. You couldn't see the sun.
For hours and hours and hours. What a part of my presentation I have is I've got an 11 gauge double barrel percussion shotgun, and from what I understand, if you found a ample flock of passenger pigeons, if you shot both barrels in air, you could actually get between 50 to 60 birds.
One shot.
With one pull of both barrels. Now, you didn't actually hit 50 or 60 birds, but the flocks were so thick that they would run into each other and then damage themselves, and they would fall down, and that's how
Wow.
we got so many birds. So
Did they net them too, Larry?
later era, actually the main commercial hunting of the passenger pigeon was more about the 1880s, but they were hunted, from early 1800s on. Well, even before that, they were harvested.
How did they get them to market without spoiling? Because, we're hunting them in central, southern Wisconsin. I imagine market was Milwaukee, Chicago, places like that. How did they get them there
They
being
actually
fresh?
would ship them back to East Coast.
East
New
Coast.
York was a
Did they
big
salt
buyer.
them or ice them?
They would salt them, smoke them, pickle them. They would render the fat out of them and even sell the fat.
Wow.
You would get, at first, during our time period, you would probably get 50 cents for like a dozen birds.
Wow.
Later era, when you got into the market hunting, which is outside of our time frame, but it's just an interesting fact, they would send them back in wooden barrels, and it got so prolific that they couldn't recoup the cost of the barrels. They got so cheap, So it was a major turning point in our history as far as, and a lot of people think it was hunting that brought down the passenger pigeon, and hunting certainly did not help, but it was their own being so many passenger pigeons that devastated their habitat, and they only had one egg per year, so they weren't prolific breeders, like other birds and stuff with several eggs.
When we're talking,
So it's kind of a combination of things. Habitat lost from harvesting wood and stuff.
when we're talking passenger pigeon, Larry, is it the size of what we see as a common pigeon today? Is that about the size of that bird?
Approximately, it would be approximately the size. Not quite. I don't think they were quite as big as the common pigeon that you see today, but more like the homing pigeon. more about that size.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
A little bit smaller
Good.
than a plump.
Interesting facts, Jim.
So
Yes, it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
when we were down in Indiana, we remember we saw some pictures of that they had paintings of just all a mass of
Passenger pigeon.
passenger pigeons
Yeah,
out there. You know,
And Jim, how did things go for you and Don, and I think Terry were in the 3 Bay along with some people making apple cider, but how
Right.
did it go on your end over
yeah, they
there?
made some apple cider out there, and the kids just enjoyed doing cranking there.
Mhm.
So that was kind of nice. We didn't have to crank as much this time. So
Yeah.
that was nice. And yeah, we had given the kids and adults too, if they wanted to. Some of them tried it. You know, to use a molding plane on a
Mhm.
block of wood to put a little molding on the board. And not as easy as it looks, you know. But
Did you do some spoons too, or were some people doing spoons?
we didn't even have time for spoons. I had spoons there. We just never got around to making
You're too
spoons.
busy.
Yeah,
Too busy.
Too
Well,
busy
that's
doing
good.
the other stuff.
That's good. When we're interacting with the public, that's what we all want, is to be busy interpreting what we're interpreting,
Yeah.
sort of thing. So, yeah, we made apple cider. It was a good day for that. We had to go and pick some at a different site because our apples this year, for some reason, whether it's an off year or whatever, they didn't. I think we had a half a bushel of apples on all our trees. And so we did make apple cider. We just didn't make as much as we usually do. And normally we make, 12 or 15 gallons. This year I think we made, well, we put three gallons in the freezer we had left, so we probably made about 5. We
Man.
sampled out a couple
All
gallons.
the people, get a chance to drink it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they
And
would have
then-
lost to a lot there that way, but
Yeah.
they get a chance to, and they really enjoyed the fresh juice.
Mhm.
Because they're used to an apple juice out of a bottle that's got that nice clear color, but this has got
Pasteurized,
that right.
yeah.
And this has got that nice cloudy color. Got the real good apple taste. So
Yeah.
that was really nice.
And then the Giese family was there making, cutting up the cabbage for making sauerkraut. So it was thanks to the Jim Giese family for doing that. That they've been doing this for probably about 30 years now. I think just about second, third year whenever we started the Fall Harvest Fair. I think they've been a part of it. So all in all, I think it was a great harvest fair, and thank you for attending if you did, and if you didn't, we'll look forward to seeing you at our next event. And in between, on September 22nd, we had the Campfire Cooking Workshop, and I think both you and Larry attended, so why don't you give an interpretation of what happened and what you liked and what worked?
Well, Larry did. He did a couple different demonstrations out there, and why don't you tell us about what you had done there?
yeah, well, this year I was the fire maker. I gave a little demonstration on how to make fire with magnifying glass and with the flint and steel.
The magnifying glass was great this year because all the other times we had it in the afternoon, and it was always late in the day. The sun was coming through the trees, so Tom would demonstrate. He would say, "This would work if we had the sun coming through better."
So it actually worked.
So this time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea of making fire back then wasn't just to start your campfire for cooking and stuff, but it was for survival as well. So you had to be fairly proficient about starting with the flint and steel and or the magnifying glass. So the participants, I had let them try with the flint and steel, and I think a lot of them were pretty surprised that they got my char cloth going and were able to actually get a good ember off of the with the flint and steel out there.
Yeah, because a couple of them, they said, "Well, we'll try it. I'm not going to get anything." And after a couple of strikes, they had a thing, they blowing, and they got a nice thing going for
Right,
them.
right.
Yeah.
And I think there were maybe 2 that just couldn't quite get the knack, but they did great with the magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know,
Now,
Everybody
Larry,
gets
do
it.
you make your own char cloth?
I make my own. There's 3 different things that I use that you can use for making fire, and one is char cloth, one is char punk, and then the other one is what's called match cord from, if you remember, from the old matchlock rifle. But yes, I make my own char cloth. I make all 3.
How do you make them? I mean, what's the difference between
Well,
them?
for the char cloth and the char punk is when you take, it's wood that's called punky wood. It's partially decayed wood. It's real squishy, and you break that up and you put it in a container. char cloth, either one, you put it in a metal container, you poke a little hole in the top of the container if it doesn't have any other holes, and you simply put it on a campfire or any fire, and smoke will just come pouring out of that little hole. And when the smoke stops, when there's no more smoke, it's done. You take it off and cool it. And
Does that mean the moisture's out of it then, Larry, at that point?
It'll be black. It's cooked without oxygen,
Okay.
which is what makes charcoal. Now, from what I understand, there was char cloth found in an urn from millennia ago. In some cave someplace, they actually found char cloth in an urn. So it's been around for many generations.
And you even made some char cloth while you were there.
We made some char cloth. We had some flint and steels for sale for those that thought it was something they would be interested in, and we did sell out from what we
good,
had.
good.
But then we made some char cloth, so everybody got some char cloth with their purchase as well, so they could take it home and impress other people.
Yes, yes.
And you also made something too. You cooked something.
We made over a campfire. There was a tripod with a wooden rack on it, and then it was covered with canvas, and then we smoked beef and fish in there. And it would be the way that they would have made jerky back in our day, the 1840s and so on, and long before that. And the jerky turned out excellent. Now, it would have been smoked for many, many hours. We only smoked it for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and but everybody really liked it. Good flavor to it, but it wasn't rubbery, chewy. It was just actually extremely good.
It was very, very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had a dessert. We had on the stick.
Oh yeah. Almost forgot about that.
Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
that
something.
was
It's
good,
it's
too.
one of my favorite in our cooking class. It's one of my favorite. Is you take a stick and then you take bread and you wrap it around the stick and you roast it just like you roast a marshmallow on the campfire. Now you have to be very patient with it. It doesn't take a long time, but when you roast it, you have to make sure you keep turning it, and if you have patience for it, it will bake just like any other dinner roll. What we use is the roll, the stuff that comes in a roll. And this year we tried cinnamon roll because you get the topping with it, plus it's cinnamon in there, and the flavor was great. Some of them didn't turn out quite so good. They were a little undercooked a little bit, but the flavor was good.
The flavor was good, yeah. You had to be very patient on the churning, and you had to make sure that you pinched off the ends. Otherwise, if you just wrapped it into a coil, as you rotated it, the end would flop down.
Flop off. So, yeah.
Then you had to keep going back and forth sideways.
You pinch the ends on there.
So what are we talking about for time? Is it 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
I don't. 5 minutes at the most, I think.
Yeah.
If you get it, you can't get it too close, it'll burn. So it takes a little technique, but it's something for the kids, something other than a little marshmallow, and it teaches them a little bit of patience, with it too. So.
Yeah.
And then Diane and we were in the house. So Diane's group was making cookies,
Yes.
and my group was making apple skeevers.
What's a hobble skeever?
Well, that is one of the old Danish kind of area, the Norwegian country area thing. It's a pan that sits on top of the stove, and it has 7 little compartments that are half holes. And so you mix up your dough and you put in, I believe, like a half a tablespoon of butter in there. And then you put the batter into just about to the top of it. And there's baking soda and stuff in there, so it will rise. And as it cooks, when it starts to bubble around the edge, then you take a spoon and you flip it over the other way, and then you bake the top half. And when that's done, you take it out. You have a round donut then.
It's like a donut hole, sort of.
Kind of like a donut hole, except that you can put bits and pieces of chocolate, cherry,
Nuts.
blueberries, nuts, whatever that you want.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you very much, because my granddaughter was at the event, and she turned the apple skeevers. So now she knows how to make apple skeevers for me at home. So
There you go. Hey,
There's
now
always
you
a
have
side benefit to this workshop, ladies and gentlemen. Now you heard it here.
Yeah, we took the apple skeevers out. Once they came out, then we put them into a bag that had cinnamon and sugar mixture. Shake them up too,
Yeah,
and then so
yeah.
you get that extra flavor then besides.
And this was, ladies and gentlemen, our first year of doing it in a one-day workshop. Previously, we had done it on 4 Tuesdays, which as we all know, is our busy schedules. It's hard to get 4 Tuesdays without something coming up to conflict with it.
Yep.
So this, I think it worked very successfully, and it'll be next year. It's basically the Saturday after our harvest fair. So whatever date it is next year, our harvest fair is usually the second Saturday of the month, and this would be the Saturday after that. So that's something to look forward to. I think it was very successful. One of the big things I heard, Dave Schmidt's pineapple upside down cake, I heard was a great hit, huh?
Right, he cooked that in the cabin, and he used a reflector oven.
Wow.
So he had a reflector oven setting in front of the fireplace, and a shelf on the inside of that, and his pineapple upside down cake was on that shelf. So you had the heat going up into the reflector, coming back, and then baking it and everything, and it came out really good.
And this was no little upside down
I
cake.
saw the size
It
of
was
it.
cast iron, and it was huge.
Yeah.
You know,
There was enough that fed everybody there. So I mean,
And we got to thank Tom Bramer for heading up the workshop, but also, Larry and Jim and Mark Bramer and Jackie Irvins, and there's a whole bunch of people involved in this to make it possible that it works. So,
Yeah.
and there was 11 participants this year?
12.
12 participants this year, so it was a great turnout, just about the right number, somewhere between about 10 and about 14 or 15. That's about as much as you can handle. And then, of course, there's almost as many people helping with it as our participants almost.
Right.
And we had so much food, people got to take home extra food that we had, so when you, at the end of the day, you do not leave hungry.
Yeah.
and Ann did a little thing
On the teas.
On the teas, yes. And
So-
she even had someone. I think she talked about foraging too, and
How to collect some of these?
right, collect some of this stuff. And she even got a phone call, and she went out. I think a couple days later, she went out with these people
Foraged.
and go out and did some foraging. So she gave them a little hands-on training thing out there in the woods.
Wonderful,
So-
wonderful. And we want to welcome you to the Campfire Cooking Workshop next year if you should like to do. There'll probably be a sign-up sheet on our website, after the first of the year, probably shortly, and we'll look forward to having you participate in that in the past. Now we want to take a little direction, a little diversion here. Recently, this past weekend, I think on the 5th and 6th of October, the Forest History Association of Wisconsin had their statewide convention in Wisconsin Rapids. And we, Historic Point Basse speaking, received the Forest History Association of Wisconsin Connor Award for 2018. And I'll just read what it says here. Historic Point Basse, Nakusa, Wisconsin, to recognize past efforts developing this living history site as an important interpretive center documenting the transition from the dominance of the Native Americans and the fur trade through birth of the logging and lumber industry in the Wisconsin River Valley. So these are all kind of stamps that were on different logs that went through different sawmills and that sort of thing. And so this is on a piece of wood, kind of a slice of a piece of wood here with a little plaque on the bottom. But I'd like to thank the Forest History Association of Wisconsin for recognizing us, our organization, for the work that they have done. And this is for everybody in our organization because they all have made this happen. So Ron Harris accepted this reward. He's one of our board members on behalf of us. I had conflict in our president, Don Matthews, was out of town, so he accepted it on behalf of Historic Point Basse. So thanks to Ron for being there, and thanks to the Forest History Association. I went to the Saturday workshop, and they had speakers on the cranberry industry, and John Berg did a paper on from fur trade to lumbering, and there was a couple other speakers on there. It was very good. I attended that Saturday morning, and it was enjoyable to attend, and I'd like to thank them for putting on a good workshop and a good conference in our city, and thanks for coming to our town. And next we go on to our next event, which is, I think, I'd say probably the three of us here, one of our favorite events is called Spirit Walk. And that's on October 20th and 27th. It's Saturdays. It's from 6 to 8:30. It's kind of an evening type of event. We suggest for people that maybe, our area there where we walk and everything is a little undulating, so it isn't just, concrete smooth. So if you have a little issue with walking or you want to see where you're going a little better, come to the early ones. Come around 6:30 or something, then you'll be mostly in the daylight.
It's a little lighter then. You got that twilight
Right.
thing, but-
And it's $5 for adults, $2 for students, and it's about a 45 to minute hour walk around with a lantern holding guide that'll guide you around, and you have a tail guide, and then usually about ideal is, I think, around 8 or 10 people per group. It sometimes gets a little larger, sometimes it's smaller, just depending. And it's kind of a first come, first served basis. But we got 2 participants this year with us. Larry, without giving too much away, what kind of a character? Are you going to be a Norwegian immigrant, or?
Well, again, that's kind of my persona at Point Basse, as an immigrant, and I portray Norwegian immigrant because I am Norwegian, but actually when I say Norwegian immigrant, it could have been any immigrant also.
Sure.
Would have had the same feeling, experience.
You just pick on the Norwegians because you're one of them.
Because I'm a Norwegian, right, yeah. But yeah, mine is a spirit that, and you have to remember, we're spirits out there. And so we are long deceased, and so then each one has a
You tell a little snippet of your life.
snippet of the life or something, and so that's basically, I'm a Norwegian immigrant
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Jim's, I've read his script a couple times, and he's revised it a little bit, but it's a really interesting one, and he's preparing for some super feast coming up, and I think I don't want to give too much away, but it's quite a
Right,
quite a feast in those days,
In those days, yes, and I portray a British trader,
which was unusual.
which was kind of unusual.
In
yes.
Wisconsin.
Right, yes, it was, and he was a little concerned about his experiences, that some of his things that he did, which you'll find out in my talk,
Right.
would fall into the hands of the French.
Ah.
He was a little worried about that.
And in those days, you got to realize, folks, that there was a lot of competition between fur trading groups, the British and the French, and Jim's, of course, is a true story, and as most of these are either true or based on what would have happened in those days.
Right.
What's kind of nice is a spirit walk is you get there, you buy your actually a little dot that goes on. I guess they're color coded.
He has color coded, so you know what group
So,
is going
and
on.
then we have a storyteller. This year, Joni Wolf is going to do the pleasure of telling stories. And you gather around, we have a nice fire going there, so you keep nice and warm. We have apple cider that you can have some nice hot apple cider and enjoy that while you're waiting for your group to go out. And then there's a guide that'll be there with the tail guide, and then you go out with your group, and they'll provide some commentary, also a little history about the site and different things you're going to see. A couple of the places where you get to will need a little explanation, so they'll explain a little bit and give it a little background. So when you go in there, because most of these people only got 3 to 5 minutes, so we don't have a half an hour to tell you a whole story and background it. So we have to give you a little background.
Yeah, it is kind of a limited talk.
Yeah,
You know? If we talk for any length of time, and this year we have 10 stations.
10 stations on the first Saturday, and I think 9 on the second Saturday. Two of the participants can't be with us. They're sisters that work together. Can't be with us on the 27th, but on the 20th they can. So, normally we have 7 or 8, so, we really got it. And when you think about 3 to 5 minutes per participant, that means that you're probably pushing 50 minutes without the walking.
Without the walking, right.
Yeah.
If we were to talk 10 minutes or so.
You'd get 3 groups through a night.
Right. The group would take forever to get through there.
Yeah.
I think too, important thing, I don't know, what would you say, at least 50% of the participants come back year after year after year. I think it's actually higher than that.
Yeah.
I think it's probably maybe closer to
Well,
80%. But
and I think
you know.
what you'll see is actually sometimes from one Saturday to the next, somebody will come and really like it, and they'll bring some friends or family with them the next Saturday.
next
We've had return visitors on there.
So
And the stories are not the same every year,
Yeah,
so.
there's at least folks a 3-year rotation, so you won't hear anything. And a lot of times it's 4 or 5, or maybe you don't ever hear that same story again. So
Right, yeah.
because we've got people researching out there for stories. I just talked to one of our board members, Bonnie Wolfslegel, the other day, and she has some wintertime stories for Schoolhouse, and she's excited about that. So she's got some things she's going to prepare for the school people in the future. So basically this year you'll be stopping at the barn and at the house, at the warehouse, at the trader's cabin, behind the trader's cabin in the fire circle there, and at the bunkhouse, and at the blacksmith shop before you cross the creek on the west side, and then behind the schoolhouse, and then in the schoolhouse. So there's 10 on the first Saturday and 9, but plenty, don't worry about missing this one. They do an excellent job, but there's so much to see and hear that it'll be exciting for you. And we invite the whole family. Like I say, $2 for students. If they're preschoolers, they get in free, and $5 for adults. It's cheap, interesting, fun entertainment. What the nice part about it, I like, and a lot of people have commented on this over the years, there's nothing really scary. It's haunted history, but nobody's going to reach out and grab you or anything like that. If you want to get some of that, there's other places that provide that in the community where you can go to get that sort of thing, but it's just kind of haunted history, a kind of eerie story of the death of some pioneer or something like that. So very, very interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. So October 20th and 27th, 2 Saturdays, 6 it starts, opens up, 8:30 is the last group goes out. So come on out. We're there, rain or shine. If you got to come out, and if the weather's not quite perfect like it has been lately, you guys got umbrellas and stuff. The characters are the ones that have the harder time. We've got at least 3 of them outside, though we have flies for them in case of inclement weather, but you can prepare yourself for any kind of weather.
Right, and the good thing is, my character doesn't die.
Right.
I get to survive.
He's one of the few survivors of the group here, folks. But we know he survived from that dinner, but beyond that, we know
Beyond that, I've had an issue.
So we'd like to invite you out for that. And you've had this thing here, Jim, sitting in front of you this whole time, and I'm just wondering, what is it, or what's going on with this thing?
Well, this is a nice little interesting gadget that I picked up. Wasn't very much. It was very cheap.
And was that at a garage sale or
Actually, it was at an
estates?
antique store.
Antique store.
And it was at an antique store, and it was only $1.
$1.
And the beauty of it is, I'm going to be giving this to Larry, because Larry has, at the home show, he does a what is it table.
Yeah,
Now, normally we don't do this ahead of time. You come to to Larry's what is it table, and you're there cold. You have no idea what he's got on his table.
But this is an unusual item.
Well, this is an unusual item, and so what we're going to do is we're going to be giving our viewers an advanced look at this.
One time only, folks.
Well, not really, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go home and I will take a picture of this
Put it on the
along with a
website.
ruler, and I'm going to put the picture on the website, and that will give our viewers about 5 months where they can do some research and thinking and everything and see if they can come up with an answer for astound Larry of that their vast knowledge.
Well, I would put a ruler next to it, Jim, and for dimensions and size, I'd put like maybe a beer can there too, so they know how big it is.
Get something here so that they can get a
Yeah,
shot at.
yeah. And we may have some old timers out to know what that is.
They just might, that's what we're kind of hoping for, and so we'll find out in March when Larry has his little old what's it table.
Yeah. And you're just as interested in finding out yourself for your own information.
Well, yes, and an interesting thing about it is, which I have never seen, and I don't think Larry has either, is that it has 2 levels on it.
One on the top and one on the side.
But it's actually only one.
Is that bubble going from both sides?
No, what it is when they manufactured the level, it's manufactured at a right angle so that it was put on there. So we know that this is actually more than likely a manufactured item of some sort.
Okay. Well,
And-
and if it'd be flat, then you think they could put it up against a post or something, but since it's got these
Got those things on
you
there.
can't put it up flat to
It's
something.
got this beautiful hole going through there.
For some purpose.
Does it slide onto something hanging that you level something out with?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice conversation piece. And it's got a nice, cute little hook on it.
Yeah, you can
Not
hang
too
it up
sure
in the
of them.
shop or
You can
whatever.
hang it in the shop.
Mhm.
There are little nail holes, there are little nails down on this side here, and there's
Mm-hmm.
nails on this side. And this, only one side has the hook. The-
We'll be doing our research on it as well and trying to find out what it is. But, you know, even if, so if somebody does have the true answer for it, we're not sure if it's right or not, so.
Yeah, well,
So, I'm sure we're gonna get some unique guesses as to what
and
the
we'll, you
function
know,
of
it'd be
the tool
interesting
is.
if we, especially if we got some old-time carpenters out there that maybe use such a thing as this or might know what it was used for.
Right.
I'm thinking, you know, somebody like Jim Allen might, you know, he's got a lot of gizmos and gadgets.
Oh, he's got a lot of gadgets out there. Maybe he even has one. Who knows?
Maybe he's trying to figure out what it is too.
That could very well be,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because it's just a great looking conversation
So,
piece.
folks, watch for it at the home show, and it'll be on the website also. But otherwise, if you want to hold it and look at it personally, you know, come to the home show again. We don't know exactly where it's going to be held. Last year was at Assumption, was a great place. We were on the stage. Larry was just below the stage with the card table and all his what is it
Right.
sort of things. So yeah, it's great. It's great.
It's going to be it'll be an interesting piece and everything, you know. So, but we'll have it on the website, and just go to www.historicpointbasse.com and
Take a
I'll
look.
I'll have a little category there called "What is it?" Click on that; it'll bring up several pictures then of our item.
I think if this works good, Jim, I'd like to see it continue. Maybe we have a what is there every once in a while, just to
Well,
pick the interest.
And I think it would be a good idea if somebody out there has an item
Right.
and they don't know what it is, if you'd want to bring it down to Historic Point Basse,
We'll take a picture.
we may know what it is, we may not, but it would be, if we could get kind of a continuing thing out there of some of these items and.
Yeah.
I know that wood
Find out what
magazines.
they are.
I get a wood magazine, and every month they have a what is it? You know, somebody picks something up, somebody has something, and they take a picture of it, send it in, and then it's up to all the readers then to figure out what it is. And somebody always knows.
Well, instead of having an antique roadshow, we're going to have an antique what is it show.
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah.
So we had mentioned previously, Ron Harris accepted the award from the Forest History Association of Wisconsin, but Ron has also been involved. We had an Eagle Scout project this spring that redeveloped our trails at Historic Point Basse. It's on the east side of the creek, and the scouts came out. They had a day project, and Ron kind of worked hand in hand with them and helped them establish where the posts would go and that sort of thing. But Ron has also been working and applied for a grant through the Audubon Society, and they got a $300 grant, and now working with some local Girl Scouts. They're working on putting up, what do you want to say, bird
It's
pictures?
It's a bird trail.
Bird trail.
So it kind of coincides with the hiking / skiing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing trail that we have out there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's going to be a bird trail. So periodically they'll have posts with the signs of different birds that could possibly be seen out at Historic Point Basse.
And probably what, about 6 by 6 or something about that size?
No, actually they're 8 by 10.
8 by 10?
They're a large. There'll be a large picture. It'll have it'll be on metal, so it'll be durable. They'll last for years. Ron actually showed us a sample sign from one that was done over 10 years ago.
Looks
and
good.
It looks brand new yet. The signs will have a picture of the bird. It'll be a colored picture of the bird, the name of the bird, and a little brief history about the habitat of the bird and some of the
Yeah.
some interesting features.
And the Girl Scouts will help Ron to pick out what variety of birds. I guess that's my understanding. And what are they going to have, like 14, 15 of them?
They're going. There are 3 girls working on it currently, and they're going to each do 5.
So
and we have
15.
enough to do 18 signs, but we're going to shoot for the 15 at first. And in fact, we already have 2 from each girl, I believe, and we've already submitted those out to Ron. And what Ron will do is he'll look at them, critique them, make recommendations for changes, and then we'll get back to the girls. Diane is kind of like our liaison between Ron and the Girl Scouts, you know. So, and she had done this for a silver award for some Girl Scouts when she was a leader. So, you know, she knows the ins and outs and everything, and so she keeps them on task and gives them advice and everything. And
Well,
then,
that's good.
So she's the go-between.
So you can see, folks, by the Boy Scouts with the Eagle Project, and we've had actually on site about 6 different Eagle projects, all the way from, you know, doing chinking between the logs on the barn and on the cabin and on the warehouse and other projects on the site, that we work with a lot of other organizations. We're not like only our organization doing work. We're working with the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, different groups and organizations all the time. So we try to keep involved with the community, and the community, we invite them to be involved with us. We have a beautiful site out there, and if we can have some synergies to work together, more the merrier.
Right, because we even have right now, I believe, a high school student that's looking for doing a research paper on the ferry.
Yes, I emailed him with my phone number, and I said I'd be happy to, you know, sit down with him and let him know the information I have. I'm thinking probably through state historical he could get more information. I know the ferry was chartered from the state in 1852, but they probably got the actual paper charters on state records at the Historical Society, so he can go from there, sort of thing. So,
Yeah, so there are a lot of different groups that the site does work with. So,
and we got 2 new committees now started that the board authorized. We got a historic committee that looks at not only what we're doing, but also, you know, different items that we have there, make sure they're historically correct. And then we have a Interpretive Center committee that's looking at the possibility of, in the future, down the road, maybe within a couple years, building an Interpretive Center.
that would be a great thing.
Originally, our schoolhouse was our Interpretive Center. If you folks happen to see, I got a 10-minute video I gave to Jim and Diane that shows me touring in 1991 the Columbia School before it was moved and talking about being an Interpretive Center. Fortunately, unfortunately, depending how you look at it, we got some one-room school people involved that actually taught at a one-room school, and they liked it so much they kind of ended up making it into a one-room school. So the Interpretive Center right now is in the lobby, which isn't quite sufficient really for what we need to do. And
Pretty small area.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And we would actually call it more like of a visitor center, I think,
Right,
you know,
right.
and where we could set up something, you'd probably have a little ticket booth area type.
Ticket
there.
booths, some displays, some place for meeting, maybe a place to store clothes, a bathroom, that sort of thing. Some of the basics, not too big. We're looking at anywhere from 25 by 40 and somewhere in that area, or 30 by 40 or some in that area. And we just got this out here. These committees have newly formed. They really haven't met to speak of, only just organizational.
Right.
So if you're interested in history and historic content, or if you're interested in helping us with the Interpretive Center, the Visitor Center, if you'd be interested in working on those, you're certainly welcome to come aboard and do that sort of thing. So we invite you to participate.
Yeah, I think with the Visitor Center, Interpretive Center too, it's a place that we can finally put up some information on all these wonderful companies and people that have donated stuff to Point Basse over the years to get it to where it is now, and hopefully to where it's going in the future, because we do have other plans for the future. There's some of them we can't talk about right now, but I am very impressed with the people that we have out there and people that take an interest in Point Basse in its future.
Yeah,
And I think
and like you were
honoring
saying,
these people is
yeah,
a good way to do it.
between individuals and companies that have been people that have helped us with development of it. Right now we've got a ruling that we can't put up plaques on buildings,
Right.
because all the buildings we got that are either historical,
They're historic.
or they're copies of historical buildings. So in a visitor center is a place where you could honor those people with some plaques, a wall of fame, or whatever you wanted to call it, with a bronze
To be
plaque with
determined.
names on it and that sort of thing. So that's the sort of place we could do. So we're looking at that, and like I say, those committees are just forming, so if you want to be involved in them, hey, come on board. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be involved in everything day to day, but if you like the idea of those
Just an
committees.
occasional help.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Now, Larry, we've had you on here. You've been on here once with Jim, and you've been on once or so before that. But let's talk about how you got involved in Point Basse, where you come from. I know you've done a lot of historic things. Let's tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from and what you've done before this, and you're still involved in some of the other historic aspects that you interpret and everything like that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? It's always interesting for people to find out, where did Larry come from? Where did Mike come from? Where did Jim come from?
My wife and I, our daughter got us into medieval reenactment. And
How many years ago was it, Larry?
And that's been about probably 14 years now that we've done that.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's parents that try to get kids involved.
Right, yeah.
So this is a
But
little
this,
different.
the daughter got involved in it, and she knew my personality and things, and thought we might be interested. So we got into that. So we've been doing that for a number of years, and we portray merchants during that time period, which is 600 to 1600. So it's a very broad time period. Well, we did that for a number of years and enjoyed it, and it really stimulated my interest in history a whole lot more than what it did in school. So,
For most of us.
yeah, it really stimulated my interest. And so then I retired, and I retired from the state of Wisconsin, and I needed something for my retirement to get me out of my recliner. And it's surprising. I've been to Old World, Wisconsin a number of times, and I thought if I were closer to Old World, Wisconsin, down in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, I said, boy, I would be out there in a flash. And lo and behold, here is Historic Point Basse, right in my own community area here. And so I attended a few events down there, and thought it was very interesting. And then I just kind of decided, yeah, I want to join, And so I joined. Met all these wonderful people out there that have an honest interest in keeping this going, what they've put so much effort into for years and years. And then they introduced me to our Monday morning work group out there once I did join, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I tell people, and this is nothing bad, I said, the thing is, the majority of our work group on Monday are old like me. So, so I said, we're kind of at about the same pace, although I am slower than
And Larry,
I am slower than these guys.
and Larry might be the youngest one there.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah. And your comment about the fact that you got interested in history more than you did when you were a student, which is
I think for
kind of
all of
like
us.
for our school. Now we have the school groups come out here and they get that little taste of history, and maybe that helps perk their interest in history when they do get back into the classroom.
Well, when you really start doing your own research and you do it the way your interests lie, in where your interests lie. And you really start finding out how, it's hard for me to explain. It's how they must have struggled, but yet when there's an immigrant letter home where this one Norwegian immigrant, he came over here and he caught malaria down in Illinois working on the channel down there, and he spent a year in a shanty with another Norwegian that took care of him for that year up there. And then he came to Wisconsin, and he has struggled in Wisconsin for a year because of his health and other issues. But at the end of his letter home, he said, "What a wonderful country." It's hard to feel how these people felt when they came here.
With all those hardships, it was still a wonderful
It's
country.
still a wonderful country over here.
Yeah,
you know.
and then Larry kind of found his niche when we got the bunkhouse done, and so normally when you come down to the site, other than maybe special events or something like that, Larry can be found in the bunkhouse. So, and we kind of needed somebody to take it under its wing, and you to be involved in you kind of took it upon yourself to kind of get the person to interpret the bunkhouse. So that was a good fit for you too. I think you enjoyed that there too.
I am totally enjoying it.
For sure. And Jim, what about you and Diane? How did it come about for you folks?
We ended up with the retirement thing, and then you have this void.
Yeah.
But
I know you're very, very busy with other things.
We're
too.
busy with the other things and everything. And Diane and I thought that, we went out there and saw it and thought, wow, this would be kind of nice, And, yeah, we went to a lot of the events, but never really did join until finally both of us were retired and said, wow, little something to do,
Yeah.
So we just jumped right in there and everything.
But you have other interest in master gardeners, and you do a lot of projects with textiles.
Right,
and
we got a quilting group that we do.
You do some singing. It's the things you've entered into
VA.
nationwide competition and stuff like that. So I mean, you're not like.
Right, we just came back from a state conference from the HCE, which is the old homemakers and everything.
Right.
Where we entered some stuff in competition there and everything. So, yeah, we do stay quite busy with a lot of the local things. So.
And then you're working mostly in the 3-bay shed, interpreting like carpentry or something like that, and Diane is interpreting the house.
Right, she likes the house.
And you also do most all of the AV and the stuff putting on the website, maintaining that sort of thing. That's
right, because
it's kind of your background anyway.
My background was in that kind of a field anyway.
So it was a kind of a natural.
Right, it was easy for me to jump into it and be able to do it without having to go off-site and have another company do it and everything, so it freed that up.
Yeah.
And
well, and it's also I think, I don't know, I can't speak for Larry, but for some of that stuff, for a lot of us, it's a little intimidating where you worked in it every day in your occupation and even back as far as in the service. So that was kind of a natural for you, and you felt comfortable. It wasn't like, well, I don't know if I want to do this or something.
Right, because a lot of times you end up taking over something and, trying to keep the website going and everything, you get rather intimidated on, because we actually do ours website a little bit different than what normal people would do it, because we do a behind the scenes thing. We do all the language behind it versus canned packages that you get out. You can only do just so much.
Right.
Where we have a little more flexibility.
Yeah, and then you film us today, and then you've kind of went through the background here, how to take the thing and get it ready for going on the air. Usually, by Friday this is probably on the air already, sort of thing. So.
Right after the show, we'll be Diane and I will be editing it, and it'll be loaded up for tonight.
Yeah,
so you're ready to go.
Why did you start?
Well, that's a long story. It's 1985. There was I had just gotten off the county board, and I was looking for something to do. And I liked history. I kind of was a minor in history in college and that sort of thing. And there was this group meeting on this Wakely house. They were meeting at Forrester's restaurant. I think it's what is it? It's on 8th there. Can't think of the name, what it is now, but it was foresters at that time. And they were meeting there to discuss about, Dave Engel was, writing the articles in the newspaper, and they had gotten together the Home Builders Association. They were looking at saving this. So I went to a meeting in like August or September of '85, and then I got on the board, and then I became a character. First I was Father Rene Menard, a French Jesuit that was in northern Wisconsin, maybe didn't come quite this far down, but then I slowly evolved into Robert Wakely. Needed somebody with a beard. So you know how that character's fall into place.
You fit both characters, the Jesuit too. He had a beard
yeah,
too.
he didn't shave either, I'm sure. So, and then got into being on the board and president and involved, and so here I am, 33 or 34 years later or whatever. So, but that's a long trip. But every bit of it's enjoyable. I never would do anything like that for that many years if you didn't enjoy it. I mean, it's one of those things, if you don't enjoy it, we've all been in those type of groups, you go a meeting or two and then you're gone. Because either they want to load you down, that's a good thing for you folks to understand. If you come into our group and if you want to do something, you can do it. If you just want to sit back and take it all in, you can take it back all in, because a lot of people have done that when they first started. So we're not going to say, now we're going to sign you up and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to do.
Yeah, there's not a lot of pressure there.
You've got plenty of time to find your niche,
Right.
if you will.
And it doesn't have to be in a character. You can be behind the scenes. We need seamstresses, and we need people that help with putting out marketing people. We need all kinds of
Gardening.
people. Gardening people. I mean, the master gardeners can
Research.
research people.
Research people.
So we need all of those sort of things, and then you can become a part of us. I mean, and it's like we all feel it's like one big family. We're like one big family, and if something happens to Jim, well, I'm feeling I should go and visit him and do something for him, and the same thing with anybody else within the group too. And so it's a good time for everybody. And so thank you for watching today. And I think that we've covered a lot of subjects, but we look forward to seeing you next month. Historic Point Basse update. Mike Hittner, Larry Knutson, Jim Nickel. Thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.